The last thing we have to do this page is to add the media queries to it so that it will be responsive and change based on what kind of screen the page is loaded on. As you can see right now, the page we've been dealing with is just works straight down the same fashion as we've just built it. If we change the browser size, then several of the things on the page will change. So if we bring the page down to, let's say about here, let's see what happened down here. Nothing has happened down here yet, nothing there. And if we bring it down to 600 pixels, we're going to see these icons in the portfolio section have now changed into 3 rows instead of 4. This has less margin on the outside of it. If you look here, we have a lot of margin. In the 600, that changes. And down on the form, the contact information has gone to the bottom instead of on the side. So looking at that, contact information is there, and then it goes down to the bottom. And actually, if you look at the form, there is another step in there as well. So in the form, this is the wide version. I go down to 800 pixels. The this part of the form where it says the where we have the checkboxes and the select box, those changed. Instead of being side to side here, they're side to side. At 1,000, they stack, and then again at 1,000 they stack, and then at 800 the select box goes all the way over. At the 600 mark, it goes wide, and the contact information goes down to the bottom of the page. And at the 400 mark, looks like the form isn't changing much at that point. But up here in the portfolio, we go from 3 to 2 rows. And up here, it looks like we've just reduced the margin just a little bit more. So it's wider there, and we hit that mark, and it comes out so it's narrower. So let's see how we're going to do that. We've talked about media queries some before. What media queries do is they allow you to basically allow the page to ask the browser how big are you, and once it asks that question, then it says, okay, well, if you are such and such a size, then you need to make this change to my styles. So media query takes very basic form. First off, in my code, I always like to write a comment that just says media queries to start out with. So this is a CSS comment, and that will let me know that this section of the code is going to deal just with media queries. Now in this particular example, I have made a change at 1,000 pixels. So what this says right here is the app media. So I'm looking for media, and my media is screen. So if my media is screen and the max width of that screen is 1,000 pixels, then we're going to do this stuff inside. And in this particular case, the only thing that we changed inside, as I was just showing you, was the check boxes. So let me show you again what we want to do. Pull it out this way. You can see in my browser, I can see what the window size and the viewport size is. And we're going to watch the viewport size here, because that's actually the size of the browser from the inside edge to the inside edge, not counting the scroll bar. So at 1000 pixels, there we go. At 1000 pixels, this checkbox area goes all the way wide instead of being in 2 rows. So 2 rows meaning this being 1 row where the checkboxes are, and the best time to reach you select box being row 2. Okay, so that's what we want it to do. This particular case, what we're going to do is add to the class checks, and we're going to make it 100% wide. In our normal version, the widest version of the page, we have made checks 49% wide. And let's go back and look at the source code and see what this section actually is. And down here, this is the section we're dealing with, is checks. And we're saying in this div class checks, where we're saying what are you interested in, there's a whole bunch of checkboxes, and that's what we're talking about here. So in this particular case, this was 100%, or I'm sorry, 49% wide, and we're changing it to 100% wide. Changing it to 100% wide will make the select box drop down below it. Let's go ahead and save that. And I'm going to preview it. So at above 1000 pixels, it's in 2 columns, and after 1000 pixels, it's stacked with the best time to reach you box underneath it. So this now, the checkbox section is taking up 100% of the area that it's allowed, which is this the area inside the indent on this form. So that is all that we need for the media query for 1000 pixels. The next one we're going to do is I have a break that I would like to have at 800 pixels. Now you're going to ask, how is it that I selected these numbers? There are some basic breaks between screen sizes, but more importantly, these are breaks in this particular page that make sense for this particular content. How wide do I want something to be? How does it look at different sizes? And so in these first 2 cases, I'm basically looking at, does it look okay in these sizes? And the reason why I decided to have that break at 1000 was that at above 1000 it looks good with these next to each other, but if I get much below 1000, they start running into each other. So that's why I broke it there. At 800, we're going to want it, have this select box where it says morning. We're going to want that to go all the way wide. And in fact, we're going to make everything go all the way across. So instead of having the last name and the phone number in 2 columns, we're going to stack everything up at 800 pixels. So again, we write the media query, media screen, and max width 100 or 800 pixels. And we're going to change the class MyForm to a width of 60%. Now let's see what that was before. MyForm was 75%, and we're going to change it to 60%. Let's take a look over here and see, I believe that is the entire form that we're dealing with. So it is actually the div around the form is now going to be 60%. And the reason for that is that we have this is another div, the contacts section is another div, and it sits next to it. So we're changing the size that each of these takes up so that they don't run into each other. Because if you get down smaller, it's going to start running into each other. So MyForm is going to be 60%. MyInfo, which is that contacts section I was just talking about, is going to be 37%. Let's see what it was before. First we have to find it. MyInfo was 22 before, and there's a 3% in between these two that is attached to MyInfo. So that comes up with your 100% there. We're not going to change that 3% down here. So we have 60%, 37% is the width of MyInfo, and then we also have the 3% left over as that margin in between. So we've changed the width on those two. And the other thing we're going to do is to bring the columns down both to 100% on these columns here, the first name, last name columns, email, phone number, that's column 1 and column 2. This is column 1 where it says please mark where you're interested in, and the best time to reach you is column 2. So we want to change those to 100% with no right margin. Since we are making it all the way wide, we have to take that margin off. Let's take a look and see what it was up at the top. Form column 1, form column 2. They were 49% wide. Column 1 had a margin right of 2%, and column 2 did not have a margin right. We could have done this another way, not with column 1 and column 2, but with a nth child even, but in this case we decided to do it with the column styles. And to look at that, for example, we've got this div here that has form column 1 with the first name and its box, and we looked at that a lot in previous videos. So we have now made the whole form, we've made it smaller in relationship to its area. We've made the MyInfo section a little bit wider so that it breaks correctly, and we've made all of the farm items come down in one column so that there is no longer a right and a left. So hitting update on that. And that's what we've made happen here. So in the next movie, we'll look at a few other things that need to be changed for the different widths that we still have to do.